It all begins with the French and Indian War, also known as the 7 Years' War. The colonists, along with the French, began infringing on Indian land. This made the Indians angry, and they responded violently, causing a war to break out. At the time, the colonists were under British protection, so the king sent troops, weapons, supplies, and others to protect the colonists. The war was so expensive that the British went into debt, and once the war was over, the British needed to find some way to pay it back. The British enacted a series of taxes in the hopes of raising enough money to pay for the war. The Sugar Act was a tax added to molasses, and the Stamp Act was a tax you had to pay if you were purchasing paper, envelopes, stamps, or any government document that needed to be signed. This outraged the colonists, and they coined the phrase, "no taxation without representation." Colonists refused to pay, so the king had no choice but to rescind the tax, but there was still a debt to be paid. So the Revenue Act was the solution. This was a tax placed on glass, tea, lead, and paint. Again, the colonists boycotted and refused to pay. This act was amended so that the tax was only on tea, and British soldiers occupied popular parts of the colonies to ensure that the taxes were paid. With tensions high from soldiers being present, and the colonists being unfairly taxed, something was bound to happen. British soldiers were protecting a government building when colonists gathered and began throwing rocks at the soldiers. Then suddenly a shot went off. It is unclear who fired the first shot, but in the end 5 colonists died. 8 soldiers were taken into custody, and the British took charge of the trial. 6 of the 8 were acquitted, and 2 were branded and then released. The colonists found this very unfair and were outraged at how little the sentence was. Now let's go back to taxes. There is still a tax on tea because the British still have not paid back their debt. Colonists still don't have representation, so they refuse to pay the tax. This leads to the Boston Tea Party, where a group of male colonists dressed as Indians dumped the tea in the harbor. The British responded by closing the harbor until the tea is paid for. This means no ships coming in or out, which hinders the economy. This further outraged the colonists, prompting a group of young and intelligent men to take a diplomatic approach to the situation. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and John Adams, along with other powerful men, gathered in secret to write a letter addressed to the king. In this letter, colonists wanted to be represented in Parliament and have basic rights. British refused and sent even more troops with an order to disarm the colonists. Colonists heard that the British were coming, thanks to Paul Revere and the Midnight Express, so they were able to successfully hide a majority of their arsenal. But a group of men stayed to fight off the British. Colonists collided with British at Concord, and the shot heard around the world launched the Revolutionary War. So who's at fault? The British just wanted to pay back the debt incurred while protecting the colonists, and the colonists just wanted to be represented. So who is at fault?